So, how do you go about connecting spaces? So, you have spaces, as we've talked about, that should be accessible by between the two, and you have others that should be separated. But so, when you do need to connect it, what are some options to connect it that really adds to the design? Um, and this really comes down to flow between the spaces, making sure that your circulation at all levels of design is correct. So, meaning that if something should be easily accessible, it's open and accessible, or that if there should be a barrier, that it's there. But it should always be efficient and should be a smooth flow between it. The fewer walls, doors, etc. between spaces, it leads to a better circulation as you go through. So you don't want a bunch of hallways in your space. You want to think through different ways to connect spaces. So here's some examples of looking at the flow. So really understanding, how does someone move between the spaces? So let's look at house number one. If they're in this far seating area here, they can easily move through the next seating area. And then at this point, they can exit the space or go into the the dining room here. Um, when they come in, they can easily flow off to the side or into the dining room. The kitchen is separated. The layout of this is so that it doesn't automatically embrace guests as they come in. All right. So if we look at house number two, this main flow brings people from the entertaining space here all the way through to the dining space here. So that is the main areas that they want guests to move between. You see, the kitchen is off to the side. That's not where they want people going. This may be an office or a study, again, not a main space. So these are the two areas that they want connected. And then lastly, in this office layout here, again, you've got, most likely this is a reception space as you come in, and you can flow to an open workspace here or flow into the conference room here. If you're coming from the workspace, you can easily flow into the conference room. So all of these spaces are easily connected, but then these spaces over here are more private. So understanding how they should connect helps you know what that logical flow should be. Thresholds, when we are using this here, it's a term to define the starting point of a new space. So we're not talking about the actual threshold strip or piece like that. It's really more of the thought of the space of moving from one space into the next. So it can be a doorway or it can be a longer transition piece as it goes into it. And we'll take a look at some examples. You can also use interior windows or screens to serve as thresholds so that you see beyond the space, but it also gives you a pause or something to walk around. Um, what they do is they allow the design or function of a space to change, and lets the occupant know they're entering a different space. So, this is good again with those large open spaces to let them know when you're dividing up the types of areas. So here's some examples. This first one, you have it's almost like an open hallway. They've made use of the space with a built-in shelf here, but that transitions from, looks like most likely a dining room space here. You move in, there's some seating here, and then it transitions into the living room space. Another option that's similar but function or feels a little differently is they've opened up under the staircase to move from one room to the next. But again, they've also made use and put some built-in shelves here. So you can see this is not a traditional door, but it does let you know you're moving from one space to the next. And then finally, this example is of a mudroom or a hallway that's got built-in storage that transitions from one room all the way into the next space um, of it, but makes it very functional along with it. Prospect is really the way that the spaces and the features appear to the occupant as they travel through it. So, what are they seeing as they move through it? Corridors are very key spaces for this. So, is there a view at the end so they know where they're going? Is there a niche to the side that gives some interest to it? Going back to that example of a doctor's office or a medical building where you're just walking through plain hallways and there's doorways and nothing else there. If you were to add in some niches with seating or some artwork or a view, maybe one of the offices at the end has a little bit of a glass wall so you can see what's coming. That makes a big difference to the design, and helps people feel more comfortable walking through it and to know what they're walking into. So circulation enhancement, here are some examples of, instead of just a hallway, you've got a space, a niche built off to the side that's workable space through it. You also have a glass wall into this room so you can see what's coming up, and even just, some branding, some artwork along here. This example right here is very simple, but it gives you a view into the seating area that's coming up at the end. So even though it's, a basic wall, you're not seeing any niches or anything, you see where you're going. And in this final one, this is just a very small niche. So to give you an idea that it does not have to take up as much space as we see here, but even just a small element can make a big difference as it goes through. You can also use window views along the space so they can see outside or into another space or an atrium. And then focal points of artwork also serve to help connect spaces.